Welcome to Washington. I'm Bret Baier, and this is a special edition of Special Report beginning tonight in the Blue Room inside the White House. Midway through what many people are calling the most pivotal week of his presidency so far, we are interviewing President Barack Obama. Mr. President, thank you for the time.
Thank you for having me, Bret.
You have said at least 4 times in the past 2 weeks, quote, the United States Congress owes the American people a final up or down vote on health care. So do you support the use of this slaughter rule, the deem and pass rule, so that Democrats avoid a straight up and down vote on the Senate bill?
Well, here's what I think is going to happen and what should happen. You now have a proposal from me that will be in legislation that has the toughest insurance reforms in history, make sure that people are able to get insurance even if they've got pre-existing conditions, make sure that we are reducing costs for families and small businesses by allowing them to buy into a pool, the same kind of pool that members of Congress have. We know that this is going to reduce the deficit by over $1 trillion. So you've got a good package on the substance, and I don't spend a lot of time worrying about what the procedural rules are in the House or the Senate. What I can tell you is that the vote that's taken in the House will be a vote for health care reform, and if people vote yes, whatever form that takes, that is going to be a vote for health care reform. And I don't think we should pretend otherwise.
But, Mr. President, this Monday...
Bret, let me finish. And if they don't, if they vote against it, then they're going to be voting against health care reform, and they're going to be voting in favor of the status quo. So Washington gets very concerned about these procedural issues in Congress. This is always an issue that's, whether Republicans are in charge or Democrats in charge. When Republicans were in charge, Democrats constantly complained that the majority was, not giving them an opportunity, etc. What the American people care about is the fact that their premiums are going up 25, 40, 60%.
Mr. President, let me insert this. We asked our viewers to email in suggested questions. More than 18,000 people took time to email us questions. And these are regular people from all over the country. Lee Johnson from Spring Valley, California. If the bill is so good for all of us, why all the intimidation, arm-twisting, seedy deals, and parliamentary trickery necessary to pass a bill when you have an overwhelming majority in both houses in the presidency? Sandy Moody in Chesterfield, Missouri. If the health care bill is so wonderful, why do you have to bribe Congress to pass it?
Bret, I get 40,000 letters or emails a day.
I know you.
And I could read the exact same emails.
But these are real people.
And I've got,
it's not just Washington punditry.
No, listen. I've got exactly the same emails that I could show you that talk about why haven't we done something to make sure that I, a small business person, am getting as good of a deal as members of Congress are getting and don't have my insurance rates jacked up 40%. Why is it that I, a mother with a child with a pre-existing condition, still can't get insurance? So the issue that I'm concerned about is whether or not we're fixing a broken system.
Okay, back to the original question.
The key is to make sure that we have a vote on whether or not we're going to maintain the status quo or whether we are going to reform the system.
So you support the deem and pass rule?
I am not...
You're saying that that's that vote?
What I'm saying is that whatever they end up voting on, and I hope it's going to be sometime this week, that it is going to be a vote for or against my health care proposal. And that's what matters, and that's what ultimately people are going to judge this on. If people don't believe in health care reform, and I think there are definitely a lot of people who are worried about whether or not these changes are in some fashion going to affect them adversely, and I think those are legitimate concerns on the substance, then somebody who votes for this bill, they're going to be judged at the polls, and the same is going to be true if they vote against it.
Monday in Ohio, you called for courage in this health care debate. At the same time, House Speaker Pelosi was saying this to reporters about the deem and pass rule. Quote, I like it, this scenario, because people don't have to vote on the Senate bill. I mean, is that the kind of courage you're talking about?
Well, here's what's taking place. We both know what's going on. You've got a Senate bill that was passed that had provisions that needed to be changed. Right? People were concerned about, for example, the fix that only fixed Nebraska and didn't fix the rest of the states. Now, a lot of the members of the House legitimately say, we want to vote on a package, as the President has proposed, that has those fixes embedded in it. Now, that may mean that they've got to sequence the votes, but the ultimate vote that they're taking is on whether or not they believe in the proposal that I've put forward to make sure that insurance reform is fixed, to make sure the deficits are reduced, and the premiums go down and small businesses are helped. That's what they're concerned about.
Do you know which specific deals are in or out as of today?
I am certain that we have made sure, for example, that any burdens on states are alleviated when it comes to what they're going to have to chip in to make sure that we're giving subsidies to small businesses and subsidies to individuals, for example.
So the Connecticut deal is still in?
So that's not going to be something that is going to be in this final package. I think the same is true on all of these provisions. I'll give you some exceptions, though. Something that was called a special deal was for Louisiana. It was said that there were millions of dollars going to Louisiana. This was a special deal. Well, in fact, that provision, which I think should remain in, said that if a state has been affected by a natural catastrophe that has created a special healthcare emergency in that state, they should get help. Louisiana obviously went through Katrina, and they're still trying to deal with the enormous challenges that were faced because of that.
Understand. But do you know which ones are still in?
Hold on a second, Brett.
Is my question.
That also, well, I'm giving you an example of one that I consider important. It also affects Hawaii, which went through an earthquake. So that's not just a Louisiana provision. That is a provision that affects every state that is going through a natural catastrophe. Now, I have said that there are certain provisions, like this Nebraska one, that don't make sense, and they needed to be out, and we have removed those. And so at the end of the day, what people are going to be able to say is that this legislation is going to be providing help to small businesses and individuals across the board in an even-handed way, and providing people relief from a status quo that's just not working.
Okay, the Florida deal, in or out?
The Florida deal...
Paying for Medicare Advantage, exempting 800,000 Floridians from...
My understanding is that whatever is going to be done on Medicare is going to apply across the board to all states.
Connecticut, Montana, I mean, there are a lot of deals in here, Mr. President, that people have issues about. And
Brett, the core of this bill is going to be affecting every American family. If you have insurance, you're going to be able to keep it. If you don't have insurance, you're going to be able to buy into a pool like members of Congress have. We're going to make sure that we've got delivery system reforms that strengthen Medicare, that are going to make sure that doctors and hospitals are providing better service and better care, and this is going to reduce the deficit. Now, there are going to be, in this, as I just mentioned, on things like making sure that states who've gone through natural catastrophes and medical emergencies are getting help. But those are not going to be ones that are driven by politics. They're going to be driven by policy.
A couple more process things quickly. You said a few times as Senator Obama that if a president has to eke out a victory of 50+1, that on something as important as health care, quote, you can't govern. But now you're embracing a 50+1 reconciliation process in the Senate. So do you feel like you can govern after this?
Well, Brett, I think that what we've seen during the course of this year is that we have come up with a bill that basically tracks the recommendations of Tom Daschle, former Democratic senator and leader, but also Bob Dole, former Republican leader, Howard Baker, former Republican leader. The ideas embodied in this legislation are not left, they're not right.
I understand.
They are...
I know you don't like to talk about process, but there are a lot of questions in these 18,000 that talk about process.
I understand.
And there are a lot of people around America that have a problem with this process. You called it an ugly process just last month.
I've got to say to you, there are a lot more people who are concerned about the fact that they may be losing their house or going bankrupt because of health care.
Okay, so
look.
Demon passed Senate reconciliation, and we don't know exactly what's in the fixed bill. Do you still think...
we will, by the time the vote has taken place not only I will know what's in it, you'll know what's in it because it's going to be posted. And everybody's going to be able to evaluate it on the merits. But here's the thing, Brent. I mean, the reason that I think this conversation ends up being a little frustrating is because the focus entirely is on Washington process. And yes, I have said it. That is an ugly process. It was ugly when Republicans were in charge. It was ugly when Democrats were in charge.
This is the reason of the U.S. economy, though, sir.
Yes, sir. And Brent, let me tell you something. The fact of the matter is that for the vast majority of people, their health care is not going to change because right now they're getting a better deal. The only thing that is going to change for them is that they're going to have more security under their insurance, and they're going to have a better situation when it comes to if they lose their job, heaven forbid, or somebody gets sick with a pre-existing condition, they'll have more security.